Let's talk about 5 ways that you can set your 3D modeling projects up for success.
It's all right, it's getting there.
What's up, ProEDU community? Jeff DeVries here. I'm the lead modeler at ProEDU, and today we're going to be talking about 5 ways to set up your 3D modeling projects for success, the first one being reference. Reference is one of the most important things when it comes to creating a 3D model. The more cohesive and the larger group of reference that you can gather, the more accurate you're going to be able to make that model. When I go through and I gather my reference, I'll divide that into 2 groups. One of them being small form details that are going to give me a better look at all the little things that are going on in the product or the environment. And the other being the fully assembled environment or product, so I can get a good idea of the overall scale and proportions of what I'm creating and everything that's going on. So let's take a look at that over in PureRef. When I'm gathering my reference, and once I'm all done with that, my favorite tool that I use to view all of this is PureRef. So I've got the window open right here. It's pureref.com. It's a great tool that allows you to view all of the reference that you've gathered all in one window, and you can tell it to float on top of whatever program you're using, so it takes priority, so it's no longer getting hidden behind things and you're having to fight with it to view it. And I've got some images here of a chair that I gathered, and let's hit Control F to full screen this. And you can see this is some of the reference that I gathered. It's not overly complex, so I don't have a ton of it put together right now, but really this covers exactly what I normally am looking for. I've got a couple of shots here that are the full product that will show me some of the details and the overall scale and the assembly of it. A singular detail image that goes over the seams, some of the welting, the cushion detail. And one of the more important ones here is this drawing that I found that lists all the dimensions. And this is something that I try and find for pretty much anything that I'm making when it comes to products. And these line drawings are very, very useful. You can take them and trim them down and make images to use as background planes or background objects in your 3D modeling program, and allows you to build that product directly on top of that image and allows you to line everything up, and it takes a lot of the second guessing out of it and will really help when you're putting everything together. The second way to set up your 3D modeling projects for success is knowing your proportions and scale. When it comes to 3D modeling things with a lot of parts, it's very important to take note of the proportions and scale of your object and how those parts fit together. Make sure that everything is revolving around the measurements that you're given, whether that's in reference images, if you found a blueprint image, or on some websites for certain products, you'll find overall just dimensions for it. So no real specific dimensions of like how seat depth is or how wide certain areas of it. They just give you the overall measurements of it, which would be considered a bounding box measurement. And that's something that I find quite common, and I found some easy ways to kind of get around that. So here we are back in PureRef, and the first thing I'd like to cover is bounding box dimensions. So I have an easel here that was made as a prop for ProEDU. What I was given to make this thing is a couple of dimensions here, and it's a 28 inch wide, 29 depth, and 80 inches high. So really that's just the general footprint of the object, and that's what a bounding box is basically the footprint or the square area that an object is going to take up. So I had no dimensions for any of the parts in this. So the way I can circumvent this is taking a look at what the product is, figure out the widest part of it. Whatever the widest part is, that's where that one dimension is coming from. So I'll take that one piece, model that out, and from there, I'll slowly build on top of that of parts that are attached to that piece or close to it, and slowly adjust the proportions of those pieces to make sure it's matching the reference photography that I have, even though I don't have any measurements. So the end result will be within a very close amount of what the real world counterpart would be. And you don't have to have all the dimensions to start with. All you really need is the rough footprint or the space that it actually occupies. Another way that I will shortcut things a little bit if I don't necessarily have all the dimensions is if you're making an environment like this. So a lot of this stuff you can research online, just quick Google search of general countertop heights, the height of a staircase, couch heights, chair heights, things like that, that will allow you to ballpark rough dimensions for these environments. So you can look at this countertop here, and it could be, 36, 42 inches off the ground, and it will give you a good idea of something that you can start kind of roughing in, and then you can build up the other details next to whatever object that you think you know the scale of is. The third part in setting up your 3D modeling projects for success is working in stages when you're 3D modeling things. So, when you start 3D modeling, you're going to want to start with just a rough shape. And it's not going to look like what you're trying to create much other than just the silhouette. And once you get that silhouette kind of built and it's blocked out enough to where you kind of have the forms, you're going to slowly start to refine that to where you're going to start to even out your geometry. And once your geometry is evened out, you're going to start adding in loops to hold the form more. And loops are also called control edges. And that will help hold that form. So when you apply a subdivision surface or something to really smooth that down to make it look really nice and finished, it'll hold its form. And the third, once you get those initial loops and holding edges in, is going to be adding in all the small details. So whether there's concave or convex surfaces, little scallops here and there, just those little things, that's where you're going to add that in, is at the very end of it. Because if you try and pack all that detail in right off the bat, your mesh is going to get really heavy really fast, and it's going to be very hard to manage. Let's take a look at this model that we have in Cinema 4D here. So you can see we've got 4 stages that are progressively getting a little bit heavier and a little bit more detail oriented. And this is the process that I'll typically go through in making something. It can vary sometimes depending on what the purpose of your 3D model is, and you can get away with being a little bit lazier in areas, but really that's something that you're going to have to experiment with quite a bit to figure out where you can cut those corners. But a good place to start is going this route because it'll teach you a very good understanding of exactly how you need to progress to add some of these details in. So our first stage is just a rough block out of it. Really gives you nothing more than a silhouette. We've got a hole kind of in the center of it because it was a larger detail that was able to be added in with our existing geometry. Our second stage, go through and start to even out a lot of the geometry and the topology, starting to reroute some of these edges so they flow around in certain areas. And our third stage, we'll go through and add in our edge loops and our holding edges. So if we go in here and turn off our subdivision surface on this one, you can see that there are loops that are running very close to these hard edges. So that's our main goal for this third stage, is to start adding those in. So when you add a subdivision surface on here, it's not going to turn that object into mush because it's being held by those loops. Once that's done, I'll move on to the fourth stage, and that's where I'll start adding in a little bit more of the detail here. If you add detail in any further back in the process, you're going to struggle because the geometry just isn't there. You're going to have to get kind of wild with how you cut the edges in. You're going to start tying stuff into vertices that are way across the mesh that are too far. And when you add a subdivision surface to it, it's going to start pulling it all over the place. It's going to start to get very unmanageable quickly. The fourth way to set up your 3D modeling projects for success is wrapping your head around the concept of if you don't see it, it doesn't matter. Now, it depends on the scope of the project on how you can apply this rule. But if they're not explicitly requiring that you have the internals modeled, whether that be gears, circuit boards, things like that, go ahead and omit those because it really adds no benefit and it takes more time to build those things in when really they're not going to do much in the grand scheme, if anything, to further the representation of what you're making. So we have a couple images loaded in PureRef that I'd like to go over. The top ones being the spray bottle. The one on the right is an opaque version of it, so you don't see any of the internals. So don't bother making them. It's something that's not needed whatsoever. The one on the left-hand side, however, you can see some of the forms that are behind the plastic. So that's what I mean by if you don't see it, it doesn't matter. The one on the left, you're going to want to block out some of those forms because they are going to come through when you do come to render time, and you'll start to see some of the silhouettes in there. So you will want to start blocking things like that out. And here we have a few more images that further represent that point. So right in here, you're going to be able to see a little bit of the forms blocked out. Same with this gear on the side, on the left and the right hand side. Now those are just primitive objects quickly blocked out. It's just enough detail to get that point across to represent that there is something complex that's going on in there without going into every single little detail and building out every item that is in these 3D models. Same with this from the top view. You can see there's just a little bit of something going on in there, but again, not every internal part is built into this thing. The fifth way to set your 3D modeling projects up for success is make use of tutorials. If you have to, do your research. Jump on Google, research what's going on and what you're running into if you're hitting hiccups and road bumps along the way. Don't be afraid to look this up. I can't stress that enough. And I can speak from a place of experience. I'm guilty of this on more than one occasion. Don't let your pride get in the way. If you're running into something where you're spending more than 10 minutes on it, going in a circle, jump on Google and research it. I can guarantee there's multiple people out there that have ran into that same issue and have found a workaround for it. Now, after the fact, once you get everything done, if you want to, go back and circle around, figure out why things were going sideways on you, what went wrong in that process, what went right, and figure out ways that you can expedite that and fix that process in your workflow for future work. So that wraps up 5 ways to set up your 3D modeling projects for success. There's many more tips beyond just these 5, so if you have any that you like to abide by, make sure to drop them down in the comments. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Catch you on the flip side. Never stop learning.